Cotton's Ampere has found itself in the middle of controversy relating to FAME 2 subsidies and has endured quite a torrid 12 months. But it is wanting to break free from the shackles of those times with a brand new scooter. And this is that scooter. This is the Ampere Nexus. It was launched in April this year, but we're only getting to ride it now. This is the scooter that Ampere hopes will give it a fighting chance against established rivals. But is the Nexus really impressive? My name is Amaan Ahmed, you're watching Car and Bike, and this is our review of the Ampere Nexus. If you haven't done it already, make sure you subscribe to Car and Bike and hit the bell icon so you're notified every time we upload a new video. And now let's take an in-depth look at Ampere's latest electric scooter. Ampere really wanted to make the Nexus look very different compared to anything else it has built before. This is at least 2 steps forward compared to any other Ampere offering that we've seen so far. What I like is this particular shade. It looks quite refreshing in the flesh, and I also like how there is a little bit of a contrast element over here with this black band running down the center. You see the LED headlight up top. This provides decent illumination, but the lighting itself is a little skewed, and I feel the headlight could do with some improvement. This is a reasonably long scooter. The wheelbase of the Nexus is longer than that of an Ather Energy, and it does look pretty sizable in the flesh, so you will notice it on the road. And at the back is where I feel it looks a little awkward because of the tail lights and the way the vents are positioned. This is definitely something that will attract attention. What do you make of the Ampere Nexus's design and styling? Let me know in the comments. The seat is at a friendly 765mm in height. So as you can see, I'm 5'6" and I'm able to put both feet on the ground comfortably. Though I have to comment on the seat itself, it's a little bit on the firmer side. After spending about half an hour to 45 minutes riding it, I did feel like I was ending up with a numb backside, and the riding position is fairly upright, so you won't have anything to complain about there. In terms of practicality, the Nexus isn't the most versatile electric scooter that you can get. There is some storage space built into the back of the apron, but it's only about enough to be able to accommodate your smartphone and maybe your wallet. The underseat storage too is rather limited compared to some of its competitors, though you do get a phone charger up front, so that enhances its practicality quotient. Now to talk about the interface, the dashboard of the Nexus. You see these switches, these are flush fitting and they look nice, but there is quite a bit of play in some of the buttons, and I'm not too sure how they'll hold up over time. Also, the feedback from these buttons isn't great, and there will be instances where you will feel like you've pressed the button but the indicator has not been activated. And now we talk about the dashboard or the screen of the Ampere Nexus. So the Nexus ST, the top variant, has a 7-inch color display. It's a touch screen, which you don't get on the Ather Energy. And by the way, if you haven't seen our review of the Ather Energy, then click on the pop-out banner to be able to watch that. Coming back to the Nexus, this 7-inch touchscreen is nice to look at. It is fairly legible even under harsh sunlight, and it also has adaptive lighting. Now, this isn't the most responsive touchscreen that I've used. The difference between this one and the lower variant is literally just the cluster. So if you want to save some money, if you don't want the touchscreen, you can have this scooter for 10,000 rupees less. Engaging reverse mode is also a little bit of a pain on the Nexus, because unlike other electric scooters where you can just enable reverse by pressing a button once, here you need to press and hold down the button while you apply the throttle. The moment you pull your finger off the reverse mode button, the scooter will stop reversing. I think a few people may find that useful in terms of safety, but for me, this was a little annoying to use. In terms of performance, the Ampere Nexus is more or less like any other family electric scooter. You have a mid-mounted permanent magnet motor. Peak output is 4 kW. You have 3 ride modes: Eco, City and Power. I've been riding for most of the time in Eco, and I'm happy to say that this does not feel overly restrictive. It does give you enough power to be able to slice through city traffic, but it is limited to a top speed of 45 km/h. The next mode, which is City, gives you a little more power, crisper throttle response and a higher top speed of 63 km/h. And in Power, you get the full 4 kW, so you will be able to hit a top speed of over 90 km/h. I was able to see a top speed of 85 to 86 km/h, and this is because after 80, the scooter struggles a little bit. but it does feel fairly planted thanks to the long wheelbase and the 12-inch wheels. In terms of ride quality, the Nexus at low speeds feels fairly pliant, but as you go faster and especially over rougher terrain, it starts to feel a little too firm and it gets uncomfortable, also because of the seat, which is on the firmer side. So if you spend a longer amount of time in the saddle, you will start to feel the effects of this firm setup. In terms of handling, it is neutral. As you would expect, this is not a sporty scooter, so it's not expecting to be thrown around, but the grip from the MRF Zapper tires is sufficient and the brakes too are adequate. The front end has a little bit of dive, but you will get used to it, and stopping power is sufficient. But what is not sufficient is the range of the Ampere Nexus. You see, this one has a 3 kWh LFP battery, and the range Ampere says is 136 kilometers, but that's on the Indian drive cycle. In real world use, despite sticking to eco for about 90% of my riding time, I was only able to see a range of 75 kilometers. And if you choose to ride in city or power modes, I think the range will drop even further and quite substantially. So using it in everyday situations where you want to travel long distances may be an issue if you do not know where to plug it in. You get a standard bundled charger with the Nexus, which will take about 3.5 hours to charge the scooter fully. A faster charger will be available, but Ampere has not told us how much that costs or how much that will bring down the charging time by. So in summary, what do we make of the Ampere Nexus? You see, for Ampere, a company that has traditionally struggled to make quality electric scooters, the Nexus represents a big leap forward. This is nothing like anything we've seen from Ampere before. There are still things which Ampere can work on enhancing on this scooter, and there isn't a single factor that stands out as the main reason to recommend this scooter to anyone looking for a family e-scooter. It looks smart, but there are still some uneven panel gaps. The build quality doesn't feel great. Yes, there is a touchscreen, but it isn't the slickest to use and it doesn't offer much in the way of functionality. The ride is on the firmer side, and ultimately the range is pretty limiting. And the biggest challenge for the Nexus is the fact that established rivals now have offerings at this price point or even lower. So you can now have a Bajaj Chetak for just a little over 1 lakh rupees. You can have a TVS iQube for the same amount of money. There's also the Ather Rizta, which is far more practical than the Nexus, which makes me believe that the Nexus arrived just a little too late on the scene. Had this been here in 2023, maybe even in 2022, things could have looked a little bit different. But this year, competition has intensified, and convincing electric scooter buyers to look at the Nexus will be an uphill task because of this. What do you make of the Nexus? Do you think it looks impressive in certain aspects? Are there any features that stand out on the scooter to you? Let us know your thoughts in the comments section. If you have any feedback for us, we'll be happy to hear it. If you found this video informative, if you enjoyed watching it, then make sure to like it and remember to share it with your friends and family.